Hey guys, welcome back to the build. We have the engine and the transmission already assembled along with the intake and the exhaust. And now we're going to start with painting the valve covers and the intake, the upper intake assembly. We have everything primed in the Tamiya pink primer, and then we're going to paint the red coloring of the valve covers and the intake using Mission Models Red and their clear coat. It's a really good paint that I'm using for the first time. It sprays very well. I like it a lot. I'll be using it a lot more in the future. Unfortunately, they only come in matte colors. There's no gloss to them. So they have a clear coat which you can spray over it, and that's what I'll be using to give the valve covers and the upper intake manifold its shiny appearance. But as you can see here, it sprays very well. I'm really enjoying using them, and we're just gonna keep going with this, and we'll take a look at the final result in just a second. All right, guys, we got a little update on the Pops Fiero build. Working on the engine here. Just wanted to give you guys a quick look at it as I'm going along and putting it together. We have the engine block, the transmission assembled, and installing the valve covers. Now we have the lower intake manifold on, and just wanted to show you some of the details on the block as we're going together. I've been putting in as much detail as I could into this engine. As you can see, we have the AC Delco filter there in green, or like that turquoise bluish color they have. It's a weird blue. We have our starter painted up. The exhaust manifolds are on with the crossover pipe. We have one valve cover installed, which is going to get some more detail painting. You can see the lower intake manifold with all its individual bolts painted up. Decided to go with the brass colored bolts as if the engine's been rebuilt and the hardware has all been replaced with brand new hardware. And you can see here on the transmission as well, we have all of the bolts holding the case together have all been painted. Same with using Model Masters brass, which is a really great color. I love it. And hopefully I can find a few more bottles of it, because it's getting kind of tough to find that stuff. But you can see I've also used Tamiya panel line paint to highlight all the details and just give it a little more of a realistic look. That stuff always adds scale, as I like to call it, to the kits. And here I've painted the timing cover. The timing cover on the Fiero engine was aluminum, and whereas the block was iron painted black, the oil pan also painted black. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about was when installing the valve covers, which are red from the factory, by the way. They have two small pegs on the bottom, which is supposed to peg into these two holes on the block, and the back of the lower intake manifold forms the back of the cylinder head. Now, what I found is that the holes in the block are a little too small in order to get the valve covers to seat flush against the block the way they are here. You guys can see that. So what I did was I just reamed the holes out a little bit, and now instead of having a very sloppy fit, we have a pretty nice, precise fit to the block itself. So now we're just going to apply a little bit of glue it down. So you guys can hang with me for a second there as I glue this down. Using my Tamiya Extra Thin, which is my cement of choice when not using normally I would have scraped the paint off of here, but this Tamiya gets right through the paint, right down to the plastic, so it really doesn't cause me much of a problem. And there we go. Now we have our valve covers installed. Give you guys a good look at that engine. Now, my next goal is to install the middle intake manifold. It's going to sit right here. And now you guys can see that when we work on these engines, those of us who own Fieros, what makes getting the valve covers off so difficult is the fact that this middle intake manifold rises right up above them. So you can't get to the rear bolts unless you take it off. So if you're taking the valve covers off, that intake manifold has to come off. I mean, I have heard of guys who can sneak them out, but that's more work than I like to do. I like to make things easy for myself when I'm working on the car. So there we go. There's most of our engine. Now comes a little bit of detail work and some customization, as I've already got the holes drilled for, I don't know if you can see that there, for the spark plug wires. I'm working on the distributor. This is the distributor that comes with the kit, and I've already drilled out the top of the distributor. I don't know if you guys can really make that out here, but I drilled out the 6 holes for the spark plug wires and a center hole for the ignition coil wire, which I'll be making an ignition coil that mounts to the engine and have everything wired up. Now we got to go to paint. Alright, now let me just show you, after a little bit of detail work, we have the valve covers on, painted just like the original factory valve covers, along with the black bolts that hold them down to the block. On both sides we have the middle intake manifold installed. Now I have a little bit of detail fabrication to do, as I plan on installing a fuel rail, as on the real car there is a fuel rail that sits right in the valley of the intake manifold, of this middle intake manifold. So I'm going to try and see if I can't fabricate one that no one else will probably ever see, because it'll be almost invisible, but it just might be fun to put in there and give it a little extra detail. But as it is right now, the engine's shaping up. Now we just have to get the distributor painted up and start plotting out the spark plug wires, and we'll be getting where we're getting. Next update on the engine, I have just made the world's smallest Fiero fuel injector rail. Now it only has 3 injectors on it at the moment. And if I could find my tweezers, I'd be able to show you guys the rest. They're only right in front of me. Stupid tweezers. Here is, for all you guys familiar with the Fiero fuel injectors, this is the tiniest fuel injector rail, which is going to sit right there in the valley. I can't put it in right now because I just painted the injectors black, and we're going to be placing it right there in the valley. Took me forever to get these 3 lined up right. I don't think I'm going to do the 3 on the other side, as this is probably not going to be able to be seen at all, much less seeing the injectors I go to the other side. But you may be able to get a peek of it if you look underneath the intake, or if you take a peek there, you may see 1 injector. Really is no point to making this except for the fact that it's kind of fun. And just another little detail bit added to this engine that never would have thought was going to happen. Here we have the belt assembly with the AC compressor attached. Currently searching my leftover decals to see if there's something I can put on there as a label for the AC compressor, as the original compressors had a Harrison 1 label on it. You can see here I thinned out the belts. It's got a much more realistic appearance now with the thinner belts. Let's see if you can see that. You can see how much I thinned them out, as the belt between the crankshaft and the camshaft pulleys is still the original size. I couldn't get in there to thin that out. So you can see how much thinner the other belts are. Definitely improves the belt drive assembly. So we have all our pulleys painted, and now we're going to finish painting the upper intake. And we're getting the distributor ready for its spark plug wires. We already have the coil wire attached. I've said it before, I treat every part of the kit as an individual kit itself. So every part of a kit that I build will have multiple paint applications. Just trying to get the details correct so that we can give the best appearing piece possible. As you can see here, the AC compressor has the rear is in aluminum. As I think, if I remember right, the original rear of the AC compressors were aluminum. That was airbrushed on after a spray painting of Tamiya semi-gloss black. And the aluminum on the pulley assembly for the AC compressor also. There you can see the clutch and everything, a little bit of Tamiya panel line paint to highlight the details. It's your really nice looking AC compressor pulley. And the other pulleys here are all done in the Tamiya gloss black. Just to have them stand out. I wanted to have didn't want everything to be all the same black, so I wanted them to stand out from the belts. I think that kind of worked the way I wanted it to. And here we have the distributor, which is, to me, it's semi-gloss black for the cap, and the base in Vallejo silver. So we're moving along. Lots more to come.